Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be talking about this past weekend's new MLP Season 7 episode, Hard to Say Anything. So that is what we'll be discussing today. So if this is your first time joining us or watching us, we do record this live every week at Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time over at CinemaQuestria.com. So if you want to join in the chat, that's when you have to join us. If you're watching or recording this, or if you are not watching this on the site, make sure to head on over if you want to participate in the actual discussion here in the chat. Pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to discuss the new episode that premiered here in the U.S. this past weekend on Hard to Say Anything, and we will give our thoughts on it, opinions on it. Maybe dive into it, discuss what different people think about the episode. So obviously everyone in chat is encouraged to participate and give their opinions on the episode. We'll kind of just start a little more general and work our way more into more specifics as we go on. And in addition to everyone here in the chat, we also have some people here in the voice chat with me. I'm Rain Shadow, so if the other people want to introduce themselves.
I'm Mr. Ben, and I have garlic breadsticks.
Lucky.
So yeah, it's going to... So pardon the pun, it will be really hard for me to say anything because my mouth will be full.
I'm JD Smith, and I want some of your breadsticks because I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm really hungry too. Oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to be thinking about breadsticks this entire show. Thanks, Mr. Ben. Well, with all of the introductions out of the way, we can go ahead and dive right into the episode. So, what are everyone's initial thoughts on Hard to Say Anything?
It's hard to say anything about this episode.
and then there's dead silence. So how wonderfully ironic.
Actually, I did have something to say, but again, my mouth was just full of breadsticks. So,
well, I know For Mr. Bennett, it was really hard to not say anything about this episode.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I was a traitor again. This was one of those episodes that I saw outside of the U.S. airing, and I had to just kind of sit on my laurels and kind of bite my thumb here on this because I'm like, oh, I love... Okay, so, before this episode, one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, not just of any season, but just of the whole series altogether, one of my favorite episodes was Season 2, Hearts and Hooves Day. And this episode gave a good callback to that, but was also one of the best episodes that I've seen, not just for shipping reasons, but just for overall characterization. I love the whole thing. This episode was very funny. Had quite a bit of good singing. Peter New really nailed it with Big Macintosh, but then again, we've seen Big Macintosh as a singer of the Ponytones, was it? I think it was?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice to see Peter New getting in some more lines, singing or otherwise.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. It was just a really fun episode. I guess it pulled off what it was doing really well, and I guess it wound up just kind of being a funny and fun ordeal. And I loved how it built again a lot on like a lot of other episodes this season with the continuity, and there was a lot of continuity in it, in a lot of different ways, and a lot of returning characters. So it was really, really great in that respect as well. But I guess it was just such a funny and enjoyable episode to watch.
Can I also just say that this episode also harkened back to the days of Season 4 where I was just laughing at the headcanon destruction.
This episode was strong with the headcanon destruction.
But I've seen so much stuff with Cheerimac, with Cheerly and Big Macintosh. We've had Fluttermac with Fluttershy and Big Macintosh, and then we even had even most recently Marble Mac with Marble, Pinky's sister Marble Pie and Big Macintosh, and then all of a sudden just completely out of nowhere, we had Sugar Bell, of all people, just kind of coming in and blindsiding everybody with this sort of hookup that nobody expected, and I fucking love it.
So we'll dive in then, and we will go to the get started with the story and the writing of the episode. So this episode was written by another new writer for the season. Been a lot of new writers so far for the show this season. This one was written by Becky Wangberg. Another thing I will mention is this episode actually did also have a new director, and the rest of the episodes so far this season also have a new director. In addition to Jim Miller and Denny Liu, we also have Mike. I believe Mike Meyer is. I think that's how you pronounce it. Mike Meyer was a new director for this episode, replacing Tim Stubby, who had been directing in addition since season 5 up until the episode before this. So I thought I'd mention that as well. So what did everyone think of the episode's writing and then this story overall? Yeah, Tim. Exactly. Yeah, it was quite an interesting thing to, I guess, to stick on a new writer. Like I said, I definitely bring the comedy really well. I think, and another thing that, again, we've mentioned this a billion times on the show already, but really great work in terms of keeping consistent characterization and also just having a lot of good reference, callbacks and continuity in the episode as well, which is something that's always good to see from someone who's writing first time for the show, both in terms of seeing how their knowledge of the show is and how much the story editors are also helping them with the writing of the show to make sure, even if you're new to writing the show, it seems like it's consistent over the show's run, and it did a great job with that. There's a lot of continuity that I really enjoyed with this episode, both with the direct callback to Cheerly and Big Mac, kind of like pretty much you can't get much more explicit in destroying a ship and show than they did in this episode with that. And I'm glad that they actually mentioned it and wasn't kind of weird and didn't mention it. But it was funny to see it mentioned in the show.
I will admit, despite the fact that we had not only just a new writer and a new director, I honestly didn't notice at the time the way that this whole episode was written. You could have told me that any one of the previous writers could have written this, and I wouldn't have guessed.
This seems like an episode that they would have at one time given to Dave Polsky.
Yeah.
You really just, both in terms of the comedy and in terms of the subject matter. He always seems to write the quote-unquote controversial episodes. And of course, bringing back Sugar Bell, that's something I've been waiting to see from the series since season 5, is getting to maybe revisit some of the characters from Starlight's Village, and we've seen them have a few cameos in a few episodes, including the season 6 finale and the season premiere as well this season. A few cameos of them, but haven't really explored them and given them any major parts. So it was nice having a Sugar Bell in this episode and making her a major part of an episode, because it was just great seeing those characters again. And I hope we can revisit some more of them in future episodes, because I think it's something that's worth exploring going forward.
Didn't we also see Party Favor and Night Glider kind of in the background, kind of also having what seemed to be a date of their own?
Yeah, if one ship wasn't enough for for this episode, yeah, they did make a little cameo, having lunch or something in the background of one of the scenes there.
I just couldn't help but laugh because I noticed that as well.
I think I did like how in the end, I wasn't kind of really sure where they would go with this. I think this is sort of the kind of episode that's interesting to tackle in a show, like a kid show, and with this demographic in terms of pairing off side characters or main characters of your show. But I did like in the end that they actually did sort of get together, I guess, in it, and then just kind of, leave the status quo alone at the end. So again, kind of maybe pushing kind of character development and character interactions forward with the show, and not just kind of leaving the status quo at the end because Big Mac screwed up or something like that. And this, really is a challenging subject to, I think, tackle in a kids show in some ways, and it's funny because there's a lot of people in the fandom that are very adverse to seeing this kind of subject matter in the show at all, and instantly write off episodes like this that even dare to touch it, whether that be just because they literally don't think, there's a couple reasons for that, why that could be. Either because they don't think the show's going to write it well, or struggle to write it well because it's something that's hard to tackle in a kid show, or that the show might become all about that, and I don't think that should happen. But there are a lot of shows where really strong, good shows with a lot of good characters and character interactions become kind of overshadowed by coupling in the show, I guess you could say. Where I've definitely watched quite a few shows where it's kind of the romance and the conflict and stuff like that in relationships, like kind of start to overshadow anything else in the show at all. And just because of the nature of the show, I don't see that happening. But you see that happen a lot in like sitcoms and stuff like that as well. And I think the other group of people don't like these kind of episodes because it messes with their personal headcanons and ships and stuff like that. And I think that's something you see a lot from a lot of reaction originally from Flash Sentry, who, hilarious enough, also voiced the Bieber pony in this episode.
Feather bangs.
Yeah, but I think the show tackled it, really well. It obviously they obviously did the whole subject matter in a lot kind of more watered down, kid friendly way, you could say. It was kind of a lot just more about that kind of crush, having feelings and crush on someone else, but in a lot of ways, it was similar to. It was similar in some ways to what's it called? Simple Ways, but with a different kind of lesson and moral that it was trying to teach in the end, with the focus on it, where this wasn't kind of an unwanted sort of advance or unwanted love triangle or anything, but more about kind of what people are looking for in a relationship and what's kind of important in that. Yeah, I also like the callback to the love potion as well, with Big Mac being like, no, thinking that's what the idea that the CMC had. Again, it was a lot of good continuity in this episode with Hearts and Hooves Day for good reason, with just between the characters that are involved in both episodes there. And it was nice that that Becky stuck those references into this episode, and because it would have felt weird without them in there.
It's not just the fact that we also had the continuity, but if you'll also notice the disguises that the CMC used also came back from earlier episodes as well. The glasses and mustache from Party of One, the Mayor's rainbow wig from the Luna Eclipsed. Just little minor little nods and callbacks to other episodes, even without verbal or even without verbal indication. Just that sort of visual nod to those episodes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the shout out to this title of the episode being a reference to the 1989 romance movie Say Anything. And then we had the three mares that show up to swoon over Featherbanks, obviously based off of those three from Beauty and the Beast.
And actually, the funny thing about the episode's title, hard to say anything, and like Mr. Ben was mentioning it being a parody of Say Anything, they actually do a visual parody of the iconic holding the boombox over the head scene from that movie as well. At the end, when Featherbanks comes back and holds a fucking like gramophone over his head at the end, which is a really funny reference to that movie as well. And I guess this next point could go in character discussion or story, but I'll stick in the story because we're not really discussing characters with it. Because from a story perspective, this is also interesting because this would be the second episode of the series where the main six haven't appeared at all, or even Starlight or Spike, for that matter. Again, just only much like the previous one last season with the CMC. It was only the CMC and Big Mac. We don't even see Applejack in any part of the scene, any scenes in the show.
But to say, I was gonna wait until mentioning this to the voice actor, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in here now. When you mentioned not only have we not seen anything from the main six, this is also the first time that we have never even seen any of the main cast, even in a supporting role. Even Tabitha St. Germain, when she wasn't appearing as Rarity, usually voices some incidental or background character, and Tabitha doesn't even make an appearance here. So this is the very first time we've ever had an episode where we've never had any sort of the main cast in any sort of situation in this particular time. So,
and it really it stands on its own, and it shows that there's a lot of other characters, just like the previous season, that are worth exploring here with it. And I'm glad they focused a lot, not just on the CMC like they did in the CMC episode last season without the main six, but also focusing on Big Mac and Sugar Bell here and giving them a lot of characterization and development in the episode as well. So it wasn't just like a CMC episode with just the CMC again. It did add some other side characters that kind of give them a little more story time. Yeah, the CMC are definitely been very heavy in the first part of the season here in terms of appearances. At first, the very beginning of the season was very Starlight heavy, and now it's shifted over to being kind of Kingdom Hearts Crusaders heavy. Kind of grouping the episodes together. And I think that really speaks to how long the show could potentially go on without getting stale. In terms of, it isn't something like The Simpsons, where pretty much that show is focused on The Simpsons. I mean, there's a lot of side characters in the show that can get a lot of focus, but pretty much all the episodes focus on the family in some way, even if it's just a couple family members. It does show that this show is not afraid to and is able to focus on more than just the main six and add more characters, like Starlight and then give a lot of episodes that focus on the side character. I mean, heck, look at episode 100 where again, it's completely focused on background characters. And it just shows that there's still a lot of characters and situations to explore outside of the main six. So it isn't like every episode has to involve one of the main six in it, and that's going to cause the show to get stale because, there's only so much you can do. There's a lot of different paths that the show can still go down in terms of character development and telling character-based stories. Yep, and Tim's point is exactly the same, and we've mentioned this here before as well, that it's the show really had to adapt and had to change over the seasons. As much as some people might not have liked some of the changes, I think a lot of them were really necessary if the show did want to continue going on and continue being good. We couldn't have had season 1 and season 2 for 7 seasons. you couldn't have kept that status quo there for 7 seasons and still had really a lot of good stories to tell, or without things getting stale or being repeated, or characters not getting development and becoming very static and flanderized or whatever. And the show has been really kind of pushing characters forward, pushing situations and story arcs forward, and also adding new characters and focusing on new characters and focusing on side characters to keep everything feeling fresh, and of course, like we've mentioned, focused on bringing in new talent and bringing in new writers and as well. And we've seen, I guess, a lot of that this season. So far, I will say that I have looked for. While I haven't watched any of the new episodes, I have looked at all of the writers for the new episodes, and through all the episodes that have shown already early in Canada, this stays true so far for the entire season, that there are no writers involved in the season so far that have been on the show before season 5, which is kind of crazy because that wasn't that long ago. I mean, that's the first season that this site, CinemaQuestria, was around. It was for season 5. And a lot of those writers for the season are again brand new writers to the show. So oh God, Mr. Ben, let's leave that to those creepy Flash games.
Agreed.
I'm still waiting on that episode where what was it? Fluttershy turns into a dragon. That Tabitha constantly mentions.
How many seasons are we overdue for that now?
Like at least 3, I think. And I think why it's important in doing that, and yeah, some people might not like the show deviating that much from the main 6, which I can understand in some ways, but I think they have to understand that really, if you want the show to continue and want the show to still tell good stories, that does have to be some compromise in terms of focusing on other characters in the show as well. And I really like it, not only because of the new story possibilities it opens up and in terms of keeping the show fresh, but also just because of how much more alive it makes the world feel to actually be able to explore other characters in the world. It doesn't make it feel like this whole world revolves around the main 6 and everyone else is just there momentarily in certain situations to be a supporting member. It shows that these ponies have different other lives and interests and other stories to tell and in the world, and really makes that whole world around the main cast feel a lot more alive to have these episodes in addition in the season focusing on those other characters. And really, that's one of the best things I think about a show like this that has gone on so long. And a lot of shows have gone on a while and have gotten stale or gone downhill. But I think one of the best things you can have about a show going on too long, that for a show going on so long, and I think that they're doing nice with this show, is the ability to explore more and flesh out your world more. Those first couple, 2-3 seasons, you really have to be focused on those main characters and focus on story development. And you only have, so many episodes and so many opportunities. If the show ends, then, you want to make sure you focus on that very, very important stuff. But the longer a show goes on, the more opportunities and chances you are to help to tell stories that really might not have made sense to tell in those early seasons and waste an episode on. It gives you more opportunities to tell different stories with different characters, which is really cool. I think this episode is one of those episodes where the plot of the story is something that you might call kind of a standard, sort of maybe if you want to be kind of mean to the story, you could call it a cliche plot. It's something that it's nothing groundbreaking or new, but I think it's one of those episodes where it's very easy to write it off as being a sort of a been there, done that before in many other shows. But I think it's important to look at it, and I think that they really executed it well, that particular formula well, in this show in a very enjoyable and entertaining way, because after all, that's what this is. It's entertainment, and it's there to entertain you and make you laugh and enjoy. And I think this is one of those episodes where it really is just kind of fun to sit back and watch it. It's one of those things where I think a lot of people might be very, very critical of it, and critical of certain characters in it, or standard story, but it's one of those things where, really, come on, you just need to kind of sit back, take a breather, and just kind of enjoy something that's really just trying to be fun. And yeah, it is an interesting topic for My Little Pony to tackle. It's like I said, it's not something, and I'm glad I guess what I will say is I'm glad they did this with like a side character like Big Mac, because admittedly, if you start doing this to your main cast and start shipping them and having them have romance, that's where some things can start to get a little iffy. And I know that's why a lot of people were really concerned about the whole Twilight and Flash thing, and just how involved is Flash going to be in the main thing, because we don't want this whole show to just kind of revolve around them. But I think they did a good job of doing it with like a character that's a side character, but not just a no-name character, Big Mac, and then have another character that needs some development in the show. And I think that was a good choice to have, because you can actually have that. You don't have to go back to the status quo at the end. You can have that relationship continue, but since they're not really characters with an extremely main focus of the show, it isn't something that you're going to have to necessarily reference story-wise or keep continuity-wise in every single episode or a lot of episodes going forward. I mean, I'm sure they'll have references back to it at some points in the future, but it's not something that's going to feel out of place if it suddenly isn't mentioned for a while again, because it is a side character. If you do something with a main character, that's when it starts becoming an issue, and you really do have to keep it a little bit more involved in the show, just because if it suddenly drops out, and it's, if it's happening with the main character and the focus of it suddenly drops out, it kind of makes it seem weird. So I know a lot of people are apprehensive about this kind of episode because of those reasons, and if they happen with the main character, there is kind of legitimate concerns there. But with something like a character like Big Mac doing this, it's definitely a lot more easy for the show to not sort of have to focus on this kind of subject going forward, while still having it being meaningful and impactful, and not just kind of written off in the end as it didn't happen. Yeah, and I agree with Mr. Ben. I mean, they kind of did it with Equestria Girls with Flash as kind of a joke, and Equestria Girls is a whole different story, because that's a different show for a different demographic, different focuses, and of course, as of right now, not as much media in terms of how much comes out every year for it. But yeah, I agree with the show. I don't see them ever doing that. They kind of play around with stuff a little bit sometimes. Of course, you have like episodes like Simple Ways where they kind of do it, but and the subject and the story of that episode leads it to obviously not going to affect future episodes, because it goes back to the status quo of the end, because no one was really interested in a two-way street there of it. But I don't see it happening with the main cast, simply because of the reasons I stated, where it starts to be, if you want that relationship to be meaningful, and don't get me wrong, relationships in stories and in entertainment can be really strong and have really good impact and written really well and be good for the progression of both characters. But at the same time, it needs to involve a little bit more focus on that relationship for it to mean anything at all. And of course, if you put focus to it, you only have 26 episodes a season. How many episodes do you want to devote to that, or have to work around that with it?
It also really helps in a situation like this, if there is something like that, like a romantic subplot, it really helps to have it to where the characters are well known and established beforehand. So like, for example, if there were male characters among the main six at the very beginning of the show, something like that would probably be a much easier pill to swallow.
Yes.
As opposed to like someone like Twilight Sentry, or Twilight Sparkle and Flash Sentry getting together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm thinking of the portmanteau name. Something like Twilight Sparkle and Flash Sentry getting together, because like Flash Sentry just came out of freaking nowhere. I mean, he was just introduced kind of like right at the very beginning of the canon, and it was just compared to other characters who were just fully known, fully well established. This dude just comes out from freaking left field, and suddenly Twilight Sparkle has a crush on him for no really explicable reason aside from the fact that he's supposedly cute. So yeah, a lot of people will really find that really bitter and really hard to accept. So, it's Twilight Sentry. I'm sorry.
That's what would happen if happen if Twilight did marry Flash Sentry. She'd change her last name to Sentry.
Alternatively, what Twilight would do if she became an engineer? Build it.
Spy sapping my Sentry.
Gotta move that gear up. Damn it.
And on that note, I really do also like in this episode how I guess the character they chose in terms of Sugar Belle, and also how they worked the whole sort of backstory into it, where Mr. Ben was talking about just trying to ship some random pony out of nowhere for it. I think they did a good job with Sugar Belle as kind of giving us reasons throughout the episode as to kind of how they met and what happened after the whole events of the season 5 finale. Sugar Belle obviously opened up a bakery there and has been importing a lot of supplies and fruit and whatnot from different parts of Equestria to bake her pies, and that's how Big Mac then would have met her in terms of delivering apples there, and then sort of going overboard and making a ton of delivery of apples. Ridiculous amount when you look at that scene and to see how many apples that he's delivered over like the past week there. So at least they made the whole kind of backstory, I guess, of sort of where the relationship kind of started before this episode makes sense, and I think they did a good job of explaining it, and didn't really shove it in your face in terms of exposition, in terms of how of explaining how, but it did a good job of showing us how and why, and you can kind of figure it out and say, oh, okay, that's what happened, and have it make sense within the universe as well. I guess the only kind of interesting thing I can mention in this episode in terms of continuity was lack of mention of Marble Pie in the episode.
Poor Marble.
Being poor Marble. Hey, they were like distant cousins, so that was wrong. We can't have that. We can't have that in MLP. We're just not going to mention that episode again. But hey, you know, things happen. You can have a crush on something and it just doesn't go anywhere. Where obviously this one with Sugar Belle went somewhere, and it would make sense that the CMC would call this his first crush technically, after discount, just saying Shirley didn't count, because really the CMC didn't know about Big Mac and Marble. We knew as viewers because we could see it, but that was kind of something in the episode. Even though Apple Bloom was there, it wasn't something that was a focus of the episode or that really anyone noticed besides us when we got kind of a few shots of them in the background doing stuff. So it's not kind of a discontinuity in terms of the CMC's dialogue there either. And in some ways, I'm sad because it was kind of cute seeing Marble Pie and Big Mac being kind of too shy to talk, but I was happy to see more Sugar Belle. I think she and Big Mac also had kind of a good chemistry on there. This next one kind of goes to both character and story, just in terms of writing dialogue. So I guess I'll mention it here. One of the things I noticed in this episode that I thought was really cool in terms of character development in the show is the lines Big Mac got. In episodes before this episode, really Big Mac either says yep or nope and nothing else, because that's kind of the joke, or he says a lot, because that's the joke, because he doesn't speak. This was really the first episode, I think, where Big Mac just talked. I mean, he didn't talk a lot. It wasn't like he was talking a ton, and he still said yep or nope a lot. But there was a lot of just genuine dialogue from him, talking with the CMC and talking with Sugar Belle as well, where it didn't seem like it was part of a joke that he was talking more than normal. It was just normal now. And after the past couple seasons where we've explored him talking more and singing more, having more dialogue in episodes like at the end of Brotherhood's Social, or him, or the backstory we got last season in the flashback episode with Applejack and him, where he talked a lot and we kind of explained the backstory of why he stopped talking so much there. Now that we've kind of gotten past all that, it's just nice to see an episode focused on him where he talks, and it's not a lot, but he talks normally, and it's not part of a joke. It's just he's expressing himself, and I really did like that about this episode's writing.
Yeah, it's nice to see Prince's Big Mac spreading his wings, for a matter of speaking. To turn a phrase, if you will.
Yep, and that's kind of the thing. He still did his yep, nope. It wasn't like he was just all dialogue and talking. A lot of his dialogue was just very expressive yeps and nopes, but then, working in a little bit of, more dialogue in as he's expressing how he's feeling, talking about how he's feeling and stuff. And it just seemed really natural, and it was, like I said, it was just kind of really the first episode. I felt like he was talking, but it wasn't kind of done in tongue-in-cheek as a joke, because he never talks. And I just really like to see that. Yeah, one of my favorite was the one where he, It was right before they did that sort of this really weird scene where he was like going to go kiss her, like wake her up, like Sleeping Beauty, and where the transition between those two scenes where Sweetie Belle's like, you know, you ready to take this up a notch, Big Mac? And he's like, oh yep, and then it cuts to him in that kind of medieval sort of what's the word? I don't know, I forget what it's called, but you know that. Those, you know, that medieval sort of clothing get up. He's like, oh nope. And it was such a great line delivery and greatly written transition there. That was a really well done joke in terms of his normal terminologies.
Plus, we also had new variations. You think so?
Yeah. Definitely, there's a lot of similar ones like that were variations of it, which was cool. It's definitely a lot of people writing this episode off as quote cringe, which I never understood why that's like a negative thing. I guess people just don't like feeling feelings. I think cringe is something that's kind of funny as a meme, but it's one of those things that has kind of taken life as more of, you know, more than just a meme, and people taking things really seriously about it. Like whenever, you know, someone's failing at something or trying too hard on screen, it's like you can't just enjoy it and laugh at it or maybe feel sorry for them. It's just like, this is so hard to watch. Oh, what a horrible episode. It's you know, it's, come on, if the episode's making you feel something, that's kind of the point. I wouldn't even consider that a cringe moment. A cringe moment in the episode would be when he's like about to kiss her when she's asleep, because it's like, what the hell are you doing, Big Mac? This is all sorts of inappropriate. But that image there is that's just kind of funny. That ending to the song there was hilarious. Okay, maybe it was the wrong. I was gonna say that's kind of a funny one there. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, yeah. I honestly don't think that you should be able to laugh at something because, you know, it's supposedly cringeworthy. Yeah. To me, comedy is not something that should be embarrassing to watch. If you're watching something and your first reaction is to wince, then, or to cringe, or to make you feel embarrassed, that's not comedy. It's straight up just not comedy at all. I don't know what to really define it as, but it's not something that I want to watch. If that's your idea of comedy, then that's not something that appeals to me.
I mean, it kind of depends on what what the situation is. I mean, and what the moment is. It's if you're talking about stuff like SpongeBob getting like a splinter in his toenail or something like that, then yeah, I totally agree with you. But if you're talking like something like, you know, like Twilight is Magic mentioned in here, like cursing out your boss while he's behind you, I think that could be a funny situation. I can see that happening like you know, show like The Office or something like that, where that can be funny. But that's also a situation where people might find a little cringy, especially if they've been in that kind of situation before. I think it kind of varies by situation in stuff. I agree with stuff like pain kind of cringing stuff where yeah.
Yeah, another thing like that is if your style of comedy is also in regards to like physical abuse, especially nut shots and stuff like that, then I mean, yeah, there is that type of moment that kind of works, but those moments are few and far between, in my opinion. It has to work.
It has to be very cartoony in terms of the comedy, like Looney Tunes style.
Yeah.
For it to be kind of accepted. So if you see something like Home Alone where there's a lot of nut shots, that's a little bit, because that's really, I mean, it's a live action, but the scenes are really played off really cartoony. It's not like someone actually getting hit in the nuts and like riling over in pain and bleeding. You know, they just like they get high pitched voices and you say ow. So yeah, that's a little different.
Kind of like what we was doing when we were watching Baby Geniuses for CQ Riffs, that moment where both of those guys just wind up getting hit in the groin area, and it's like that's more like, how can you be so dumb to fall for something like that? Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here.
No, I mean, I brought up the cringe because that's a complaint I've seen leveled at the episode and a lot of episodes of the show where someone is failing at something. That's usually the thing that I see it the most where I have an issue, is where someone's failing at doing something, whatever it might be, and somehow it's automatically cringe because it's hard to watch them fail, and I would say that. I think one of probably the most prolific ones would be the one that Radio Dog mentioned, where Spike trying to sing at the games. But I found that's definitely something that can be I can see people finding a little cringy. But I found that really funny. I mean, it's a joke. I think that's one of the kind of things that is more funny, that you just need to kind of like just put your head in your palm and just kind of laugh about it. That's a good one, Mr. Britton. Yeah, that's it.
I also have to mention that the Homer Simpson thing, I also have to admit, that wasn't just the cereal milk catching fire. It's also because of the fact that Homer was trying to cook him, I think, in that scene, and everything that he tried to cook caught fire.
Yeah.
So he decided to make something simple like pouring a bowl of milk in cereal, and then the cereal milk caught fire. And that was what made it funny.
That's what Homer gets for eating asbestos.
But saying, yeah. I also have to admit with Tim, it's like, if it wasn't for Featherbangs kind of just butting in at like the most inopportune times, then I kind of get the feeling that the relationship between Sugar Belle and Big Macintosh would have advanced in a far more natural and far more I wouldn't really say quick, but it would have definitely been a lot smoother.
Yeah. It was already well on its way there. It was kind of like when Featherbangs came into the picture, it was sort of Big Mac started trying too hard, and trying to be to do stuff that he normally wouldn't do, just to make himself be more appealing than Featherbangs was. Yeah, I don't really think I don't get that one, Radio Dog, in terms of Rainbow Dash impersonating her friends. I don't even think that's a cringe. I mean, the Spike one, I can definitely mark that as, I found it really funny. But yeah, it's Spike's making kind of a fool of himself. But Rainbow Dash impersonating her friends, I don't really find that even remotely kind of cringy. I just found it kind of funny. See, was there anything else for the story and the writing that anyone wants to mention before we move on to characters? So we'll move on to characters.
I really can't think of anything. Yeah. So
yeah, I think we mentioned most of the stories. So we can start discussing the characters. Go ahead. Let's start with what everyone think of waifu new waifu stealer Featherbangs.
So I mentioned this in the chat room, but a lot of people were kind of like thinking of Featherbangs has sort of a really divisive character, kind of like really to be a bit kind of how can I say this? So to give the people watching a little bit of a explanation on what I do here, I have a bit of a running gag here on CinemaQuestria where there are certain characters I will refer to as this motherfucker, and it's kind of like and here we have this motherfucker. But
and other certain variants.
So, yeah. And certain variants, yeah, as well, yes. But and I usually use that type of phrase for really deplorable people. Just straight up just unrepentant dicks and jerks, and just there were a couple of people in the chat room kind of making references to that gag. With Featherbangs kind of being that, and I don't really feel that Featherbangs is really in that deplorable character thing here, and the reason why is because despite the fact that he has been horning in on Big Macintosh's girl, if you will, to turn a phrase here, to say what to reiterate what Tim's saying here, he was basically being just that, a tryhard. He was basically trying his best to seem something he wasn't, because he was actually being insecure. And right at the very end of the episode, he basically admits his failings, he admits his shortcomings, and he even comes to the idea that, and it's pointed out to him by the CMC no less, that hey, you already have a trio of girls like right here, and he's like, oh okay, it's like I never even noticed them before. I was
the moral of the story is harems are okay. I love how the episode pretty much like, yeah, you have 3 other women here. That's
and then he runs into the trouble of the 3 having a cat fight over which one gets him now.
That's okay. You can, they can all join in.
You can also go for the Tenki Muyo solution and marry all of them, but
yeah, hey, just move to Las Pegasus, you'll be okay. Anything goes there.
But yeah, like Tim also mentioned, I mean, not only the fact that he also came clean about it, but he also even admitted to the CMC, hey, can you even help me out here? And just the fact that he actually again admits his shortcomings and actually takes steps to improve himself as a person, he's not really that bad of a guy, all said and done. So
I really liked how they kind of made him, with the exception of the bad guy part, like Mr. Ben is talking about there, where he really, in the end, he really wasn't. I like how they kind of made him sort of a modern Gaston from, I mean, right down to like the 3 ponies that were swooning over him were pretty much, references to the 3 women that were swooning over Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. So in terms of his character and story, with the exception of not really being all that flat out dick in the end and monster, he was Gaston, but that kind of a modern, more modern spin on him, where his personality was a lot more like, and like, speech pattern, how he talked, and his voice was a lot more closer to like pretty much dead on like Justin Bieber kind of thing. And we can even, of course, that parody even extends to his music, where pretty much the first song of because there's the song is sort of like multiple songs. The first song that Featherbangs sings is pretty much a direct parody of of Justin Bieber's song Baby, even in terms of like the song structure, the chords. If you listen to both of the songs, they're very, very similar. It's a very much of a direct parody of that. So I thought that was kind of interesting, where him kind of both being kind of gets down with like a modern Justin Bieber twist to him. This was definitely another situation where a lot of people I saw some people kind of not liking the episode because of his character as well, where it's like, I didn't like it, I didn't like that character at all. Well, yeah, you're not really supposed to like him. That's kind of the point. The episode sort of sets you up on Big Mac's side at the beginning, and up until sort of the climax at the end of the song. So yeah, you're not supposed. This is a character you're not supposed to like. He's supposed to be a little abrasive, much like Trenderhooves back in Simple Ways was very similar in a lot of ways, where yeah, you're not really supposed to be on his side. I see that on a lot of episodes where. Of the show and other shows as well, but I'm mostly involved in this fandom, where an episode is pretty obviously setting up you to dislike a character, or dislike a situation, or dislike what a good character is doing. Like if a good character is doing something bad, and or doing something that they're not in the right, they're in the wrong. I see a lot of people holding the episode accountable and the writing accountable, because what this character is doing is wrong. It's bad writing. No, it's kind of the point. It's good characters can do bad things, and there's going to be characters in the show that you're not supposed to like, that you're supposed to be against, and that's kind of the point of telling a story and making you feel a certain way about a character. So I never really understood why I always see so many people that kind of react like that to characters where you're not really supposed to like them at a point in the episode.
In a similar mention, kind of like what Twilight is Magic is here saying, I kind of don't get the point, or really kind of get the understanding of some people of like what TV tropes will put Draco in leather pants, where you actually have a character who's basically really indeed that deplorable of a character, has the whatchamacallit, the work is making him out to be, but for some people, for some reason, the people are just willing to dismiss his flaws and his crimes and just generally put him up on a pedestal, even though he's not meant to be liked to begin with. And I don't understand that.
I think another one, and this is something we'll get to when we get back to our season. I really wish we would have discussed this beforehand, but this episode beforehand. But I definitely Pinkie Pie and Philly Vanilli is definitely a similar way, where I obviously a lot of people don't like how she kind of acts towards Fluttershy in that episode, but I kind of blame that on bad writing or of her character. But I really think she was meant in that episode to be kind of going overboard and pushing Fluttershy too far, and being that kind of opposite end to the episode, the lesson the episode was trying to teach there, in terms of tackling, not being afraid to tackle new things and face your fears, but doing so at your own pace. Whereas Pinkie Pie, who didn't understand what Fluttershy was really going through at all because of her character and what her personality is, was sort of the opposite end of that, trying to get her to just get over her fears and automatically try and do the, face her fears head on it. And the episode was showing that to be incorrect. It's not going to work for every person, every pony, and especially for characters like Fluttershy. And I think just a lot of people jumped on that as bad characterization because Pinkie Pie was in the wrong there. And we'll get there when we get to that episode eventually. But that's I was kind of wanting to get it because it was kind of a similar sort of situation to what we're talking about here.
Similarly, as well, like what we discussed back when we covered Rock Solid Friendship, when she was kind of doing the same thing with Maud and Starlight, trying to push them together. And even Maud was getting to the point to where she was getting exasperated over Pinky.
Yeah, and that was even much more specific and obvious thing, I think, in that episode, where Pinkie Pie was definitely supposed to be in the wrong there, where she was not seeing the situation. It was focused way too much on her concern for Maud actually coming to Ponyville, where she very explicitly went over the line there, and the episode was showing that as the point of it. But yeah, like Mr. Ben and others have mentioned, I did like how in the end they didn't make him to be like a Gaston character where he got really jealous and got revenge or tried too hard, and they could have easily made that ending. He came back with the gramophone over his head trying to do it, and it seems like, haha, I know you lost out on your chance. Then he goes away dejected or angry, or runs off anger or something. But no, instead they made him like actually have some character development of his own at the end, and kind of show what his faults were and why he was doing what he was doing and acting the way he was, and then offer the CMC offering him help to conquer those fears and to change who his personality was. And I did like that they kind of did that for him at the end, instead of just going the route of, oh, I'll get you next time, Big Mac, and running away or something like that.
I will have to admit, even if they didn't go with him, expressing insecurities and the CMC trying to find him, another person, just the very fact that he even accepted this gracefully was just something that was a big plus for me. Because, like you said, I've seen the whole "I'll get you next time" gadget, being. I've seen that so often in so many other works, not just here in Pony, but just seeing that happen so many times. To see this guy kind of accept his loss is kind of a refreshing change of pace, and just that alone has always been, hey, can't win them all. That alone is just something I have to applaud the writers for doing. So
yeah. So how about the Cutie Mark Crusaders in this? All three of them as a group, or any of them specifically in terms of their characterization?
I kind of have to admit, this is kind of like one of those paradoxical issues where we kind of get them seeing to be acting more like adults, but at the same time we get to see them acting a lot like children as well. This is probably like one of the very few times we actually get to see them playing around, actually playing as kids, getting up with the disguises and making up the silly little spy names for themselves. What was that goofy name that
Spyret
called herself?
Spy.
No, that was Apple Bloom, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, the Apple Bloom was the Spyret. God damn it! Now I kind of want to play Team Fortress 2 with my pirate hat as a spy character now.
I am the Spyret.
just to make that line. I kind of want to do that now.
So at the beginning, Sweetie Belle was shimmering spectacles, a librarian with a mysterious past.
Yeah, and the fact that she even mentions that later on in the episode when she's going up to speak with Sugar Belle, it's just, are you seriously? Oh, it was great.
And I think on the other end of the spectrum, we see them, growing up in a lot of ways as well, in terms of actually, tackling a subject like having a crush or, being in love. And I think it's definitely tackled in a more mature way than Hearts and Hooves Day. Then they tackled it in Hearts and Hooves Day as well, where in there they were kind of just doing it by any means, but here they're legitimately trying to try different ways. And of course they're still younger, where they're they can't see like the big picture of being yourself and all the other stuff that Big Mac says at the end, where they're actually trying to do like storybook, like what they've seen in like fairy tales and storybooks in terms of how you win over a girl in those. And yeah, it was funny seeing Sweetie Belle kind of swoon over Featherbanks throughout the entire episode. There's the one that the picture that DM12 linked there with Sweetie Belle, kind of swooning as he's singing. The other 3 mares that were swooning over him kind of get in there and block him and block them all from viewing it in that thing. And Sweetie Belle's head pops up over all of them, and she has the fucking angriest look on her face. It is so
Sweetie Belle
hilarious.
Have to slap a bitch.
Yes, it's that look. It is that look. But it is interesting because on the opposite end of like what Mr. Ben's talking about, and kind of having 2 ends here, also seeing them kind of grow up and maybe experiencing or tackling issues like this, where we wouldn't have tackled them or done it in a similar way back in those earlier seasons. Yeah, there's the other one. It's just like
I'm just
she's
gonna
gonna
say this
fucking
right
kill someone.
now. I think Sweetie Belle actually won face of the episode on this one here just for that expression alone.
Yeah. Yes, Sweetie Belle was great throughout this episode.
It's also interesting that we bring up the CMCs acting mature or in some ways and then still acting like kids in others, especially since we just had an episode where Sweetie Belle, we had an old episode with Sweetie Belle casting aside some of her old childish things, and here we have her doing stuff like reading the fairy tales and everything.
You're never too old to read fairy tales. I liked how she tried to pass it off as doing something in the past. Like I used to read these fairy tales, and Scooter was like, you mean like a few minutes ago, like when we were on the way over here? I was younger then.
They're the gory Brothers Grimm versions. Yeah, that's my excuse for still reading them.
It was nice to see them admit their mistake as well at the end and sort of come out and admit to Sugar Belle, like, oh, this is who we are, and yeah, we kind of fucked it up, and none of this would have happened. And our brother wouldn't have done any of these crazy things without us kind of convincing him to do so. So it wasn't like they were forced into apologizing or anything. They things were kind of coming together in the end. When Big Mac was able to, kind of rebuild Sugar Belle's display table in a bigger and kind of the way she wanted it, and things were already kind of improving between them. Then they could have just left it at that, but they did take the initiative to kind of come in there and say, it was all our fault. Hey, like I said, man, you're never too early to enjoy a good never too old to enjoy a good fairy tale. That, and I think he really didn't. At that point, he just didn't really know what to do, so he would have accepted help from anywhere. And again, it was nice seeing them, all three of them, sort of come together at the end to actually, help Featherbangs and offer to give him advice as well. Although I'm not sure how good the advice would be. We all know how well that worked out for Big Mac. So, what about the characterization of Sugar Belle in the episode?
To say it's nice to see that she's actually growing more as a baker. It's kind of funny how I know it was just mainly used as an excuse for Big Macintosh to see Sugar Belle in the episode, but just to see that humongously mountain of apples just there and then, and she's just coming up with all these ideas to just make them into so many different types of desserts and dishes, and considering the fact that she even mentioned that how she used to only bake muffins.
Yeah. Just, we have muffins. I still love that line from the season 5 premiere. And I guess it's interesting because I guess going into this episode, one of the things I was expecting was this to be sort of a one-way street in terms of Big Mac having a crush and trying, his best to try and win her over, or something like that. And who knows what happens in the end of the episode with that. But no, they actually, from the get-go, made this very obviously a two-way street. It wasn't just him delivering a ton of apples because he wanted to see her. She was ordering those apples for him as well. Just, an attempt to get to see him more.
And yeah, I do have to admit that I like the fact that she was, a lot of the times, even though when he was acting kind of a little more over the top, even though the fact that she was obviously baffled and confused, she was still willing to roll with it.
Yeah.
And smile at him. So.
But yeah, it was nice seeing her, very much being, so much more into baking and expanding her business and stuff compared to what we saw in the season 5 premiere, where she was sort of forced to just, not really, because she got her cutie mark taken away, not really able to make more than just kind of disgusting cardboard muffins. And it was nice to see the episode also directly sort of reference that as well, in terms of when she got really excited about baking. Like, all I could used to make was just, nasty muffins, but now I can make, she starts rattling off all these different treats that she makes now. And of course, apple pie. And she and giving that look. I mean, oh my God, this. That's one thing I didn't really mention in the writing, but this episode might have the record for most innuendo. It's pretty close to Simple Ways in terms of innuendo in the episode, and like suggestive lines and visuals. Like if you want an example of something that I can't believe is an actual line in the show from the song. At the beginning, where Big Mac sings, "We'll plant the seeds of love together and water them right for a good yield." It's just like, how did that line get into this show?
Someone was asleep at the radar.
Oh my God.
Also, speaking of getting, sneaking stuff past the radar, can I also just mention that when Big Mac first arrives at Sugar Belle's bakery, Sugar Belle occasionally makes an effort to display her backside to him too, which is about as close to a real behavior of American estrus as you can get in a cartoon for girls.
So many bedroom eyes in this episode. They did a really good job, I think, also on the build-up to the climax of the episode, throughout the song mainly, where we see her slowly kind of getting more and more annoyed with what's going on, to the point where you're just telling both of them pretty much to just fuck off.
Oh, Zelda 2. No, I've never actually played that often. I need to do that. Maybe one day I'll stream that here.
So, how about Big Mac and his characterization in the episode?
Let's see. Big Mac. Where can I start on this one here? Like I mentioned, it's very nice to see Peter New as Big Macintosh get more lines. Macintosh in general was just, like Tim said, he was just great. He was willing to go along with some of the more crazier and zanier ideas that the CMC had, even though he very clearly drew the line at no love potions.
He's had bad experience with that in the past.
Yes, yeah, we all remember what happened the last time that happened. No good came of that. So, and
yeah.
Macintosh was.
I was happy he remembered that.
and yeah, it was just the way that he like Tim mentions that the way that he just sort of comes out of his shell more gradually and becomes a little more expressive is just we need more of that. Just that's just my opinion anyway. Yeah. Maybe we finally will or something one day.
Yeah, I really liked his sort of after the climax when he's sort of having that dialogue with the CMC about Sugar Belle not being a fairy tale princess. I really liked that whole dialogue exchange between him and the CMC there, and when he's very sincerely and emotionally talking about why he who Sugar Belle is to him and what she means to him and why he feels that way towards her.
Not to mention that when he finally gets to tell her how he feels, he's barely able to manage to work in the words "yep" and "nope" between just incomprehensible giggling.
Yeah.
Even though Sugar Belle, she's like, "Yeah, I know how you feel. I feel the same way." Shut up and catch me, fool. Personally, I think that would have worked a little bit. In my opinion, it probably would have been even funnier if Sugar Belle just said nothing and she just simply just shut him up with a kiss. That would have been great. That's just my opinion, though.
And yeah, I mentioned a lot about his character already in the writing section, where I really did enjoy how much more talkative he was in the episode without it being sort of used as a joke or overdone or anything. He was still very specific with a lot of his words, but did have a lot more dialogue and meaningful and emotional dialogue as well. mean, it was nice seeing a lot more of Big Mac again in this episode and having him being a focus and him, doing, new things in terms of being in love, but not under the crazy spell of a crazy love potion. But in seeing how he reacts to a lot of the situations that the CMC are throwing him into, and trying to figure out what the best way is to win Sugar Bell over. But outside of that, when he's just being himself, those are some of the best scenes where he's just being very awkward and somewhat silent, trying to when he's around Sugar Bell in those times. Anything else for characters or characterization that anyone want to mention for any Big Mac or any other characters? Yeah, Dark, we talked about that, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the story section in terms of how it really didn't feel like it was necessarily a relationship sort of out of left field, because they did a good job of visually, in the first parts of the episode, they're visually explaining sort of how they got to this point and how they met, and why they both have seen each other so much in terms of Sugar Bell expanding her baking business now that she is able to, and getting materials and fruit and whatnot from different locations, and of course that's how she originally would have met Big Mac. It's never explicitly stated like an exposition in the episode, but they do a really good job of visually explaining that, so it makes sense how they met each other, and then sort of where it built from there. See, okay, so we can move on now to the next section, which is voice acting. So we already kind of mentioned before, Mr. Ben mentioned before, about not only not having any of the main six, but not having any of the main six VAs in here either. We got the CMC, Michelle, Madeline, and Claire, of course. Peter New, of course, as Big Mac. We have Rebecca Chalette, of course, you will know as Twilight's singing voice, as well as Sunset Shimmer, as other various ones. She reprises her role as Sugar Bell from the season 5 premiere, and one of the best, I think, the best voice acting jokes I've seen in the show, casting Vincent Tong as Featherbangs, which if you don't know, Vincent Tong is also the voice of Flash Sentry, so kind of typecasting him into the waifu stealer role really made me laugh when I looked up who voiced him.
Yeah, Vincent Tong as Featherbangs. You just that little tongue-in-cheek joke was just great.
He gets to play a true 100% waifu stealer in the episode.
Finally.
I guess one thing to say is I really, really, really love Rebecca Chalette as Sugar Bell. That voice is just so ridiculously cute sounding and very just enjoyable to listen to, and she delivers a lot of really good dialogue in that voice, as she's kind of swooning over Big Mac there at the beginning and at the end, and quickly listing off all the different pies that she makes and stuff like that. It's always nice to see a lot of the singing, a lot of the singers for the show who sing for a lot of the characters get the more voice acting roles as well, and seeing what they can bring to the show. And again, major props to Peter New for just being great as Big Mac and delivering so many great lines, from the simple yups and nopes to very natural sounding things of him talking without it being like he's never talked before or something like that. It's delivering very natural dialogue as him, and of course busting out some pretty good singing again as Big Mac, and we've heard him a couple times before as kind of in the ponytones, of course, as the backup bass line, as well as singing in a more high-pitched Big Mac voice, and Sisterhood Social, of course. So it was nice kind of hearing him sing sort of a country song in his own voice here, and I think he did a really good job of singing as Big Mac. Claire delivered a lot of really good lines. Sweetie Belle too, like the metaphorical sunset line, screaming line. A lot of really good, like very loud, high pitched kind of screaming lines as she became more and more frustrated throughout the episode.
Say Vincent Tong really also stole the show in more ways than one. With his voice for Featherbanks. Just that smooth, smarmy kind of.
I mean,
hey girl.
It was such a good, like, Justin Bieber kind of mocking impression. It was so spot on. And holy crap, him singing as in that song too, and for Featherbanks parts was really good.
Yeah, that pop song that just sort of came out of freaking
so
nowhere.
Great. It was just so funny because you go through the entire episode saying, "Oh, this pony is totally Justin Bieber. This is like a parody of Justin Bieber, isn't it?" I guess it seems like it's Justin Bieber, and you get to the fucking song and he fucking sings a Justin Bieber song pretty much. It's just like the payoff there was so, for me at least, it was so great. Yeah, like Tim said, his more normal voice at the end when he was sulking and talking to the CMC and whatnot was really good as well. And big props to Madeline Peters and Scootaloo's sound voice when she was disguised, kind of trying to stall Sugar Belle at the end there as she was walking back to her house. That kind of sort of British sounding. I don't know. This kind of voice was. I really found that very funny.
And like you mentioned, Sweetie Belle just kind of we're not really getting those voice cracks anymore that she used to have like in the earlier seasons, but
she does a lot of good high pitched screams though. Still, like in this episode.
Hey, that's our medical son said he's riding off into.
that was such good delivery on that.
Yeah, rip Sweetie Belle, or I should say rip Squeaky Belle. I should say. The Queen is dead. Long live the Queen.
So, I know we got a lot of this to talk about in the episode, so let's go ahead and get to it. The humor of it. It's definitely a very enjoyable, humorous episode. So, what did everyone think about the humor? What was everyone's kind of favorite parts of that?
Big Mac's coming quick. Act like apples. What? How?
That line was... that line got me when we were watching it. I busted out laughing at that one.
And then they all huddled together and just piled apples on top of their heads with, just goofy expressions.
Act like apples. What?
And the funnier thing is since Big Mac was so love-struck, he didn't even notice it, so it actually worked.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah. Doesn't even pay attention to them, just walking away with literally hearts in his eyes. Oh,
I think for me, one of the funniest things in the episode, and I see so many people hate on the song just because, oh my god, it's pop and it burns my ears. But I found that song and that song sequence so freaking enjoyable and hilarious. It was so obviously over the top, and they were so obviously, in the song itself mocking like Justin Bieber and pop music, and and all the sequences there from them like crowd surfing his backup singers, crowd surfing Sugar Belle there, and then throwing her onto the stage where she proceeds to just face plant on the stage and just lay there until Featherbangs picks her up. And there's so many just outlandish, ridiculous, weird things in that song, both in terms of the lyrics and, like we mentioned before, those kind of innuendos. And just Featherbangs' lyrics were just so outrageous that I found myself laughing at them every time they come back up. Just what was the thing like oh yeah, like in this his second part there where he's like be my sugar plum, I'll be your watermelon. It's the most cheesy and ridiculous lines in this song, and they were so gloriously hilarious.
Featherbanks was just constantly stealing Big Mac's thunder, and like that one line where he comes in, Appleman's like, what can he do that you can't? And he's like juggling the 3 balls, and he's like, these balls are just like you. I'll always catch you if you fall. Seriously, that line worked?
But the funniest thing is that when Scootaloo saes that line work, you look at Sweetie Belle behind, and she's totally
Sweetie
just
Belle
like
just
swording
dreamily,
over
like,
him. Yeah. Speaking of the autotune in the song, it was so over the top, and it was hilarious. Like, it was so deliberately over the top in there. If you go back there and you listen to I'll play it when we get to the. I'll play the track when we get to the song specifically. But you listen to that last section of the song there, the last third verse, this third solo part for Featherbangs. The center channel of you get in the left and right channels, you get his singing, but the center channel of that is literally 100% auto tune, and it's so fucking ridiculous. It's just, you know, like a robot singing. It's hilarious.
Speaking of the songs, Big Macintosh struggling to come up with lyrics on one occasion. At one point, rhyming Blue with itself, and then closing one verse by going something be mine.
And then of course Sugar Belle's eyes aren't even blue in the CMC. Like, Apple Bloom comes by and like puts these spectacles over her eyes that change them to blue.
Yeah.
Big Mac is about as good as color rhyming as Snips and Snails is.
At least he didn't drop a microphone on the stage, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah, secret weapon. Now, I love that at the beginning that triple dialogue delivery when they're trying to, when Scooty's like, something's definitely going on. There's only one reason a pony would travel so far so often, and Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle say he's training for a marathon, and Apple Bloom's like runs on past what they're saying. You can't even understand what the beginning of what they're saying is, but Apple Bloom runs on past that and says he's probably picking a lot of broccoli and he wants to get away from the smell. So. And that line's it's so great in the episode, just because you can't understand that first part, so you just hear a bunch of unintelligible stuff, and then Apple Bloom saying that he wants to get away from the smell at the end.
Let me see if I can get something like that. Hang on, I'm pretty sure there's a transcript I could look up and see if I can't figure out what exactly was being said.
The fucking Sweetie Belle gift there. She's happy, and then her head just slowly pops up over him with that fucking face.
Yeah, you're right. Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle both say he's training for a marathon. I don't know why. I thought they were saying something totally different. Never mind.
Let's see. What else? Anything else for humor that anyone wanted to mention?
just the fact that we actually had a situation where not only did we get to see the the Cutie Mark Crusaders wearing the disguises, but at one point when Scootaloo's actually going to steal Sugar Bell's bags or something, she actually has all three on at once.
Yeah. Yeah, the one that the line that Dark says too was great. Yeah, like show you around the town, yeah, and that's the whole town. It's just one street. Yeah. That line was delivered so well. So, anything about the animation and visuals that anyone wants to mention? It was nice seeing the Starlight's town again and seeing more inside of Sugar Bell's place as well, and sort of what she has going on in there. The costume, the CMC costumes were really fun. Yeah, and visually, Featherbangs definitely has a lot of resemblance to Justin Bieber as well. Yeah, there were so many great faces. We already talked about the Sweetie Belle one. There's the one right when Big Mac is leaning in to kiss Sugar Belle when she's asleep there, and he has this such a fantastic face in it. If someone wants to maybe find and link that one, it's like he just has like a completely flat expression with this very square. I think it's his muzzle or something. Is this very square, angular point on it. It looks so weird, but it really made me laugh. And of course the scene right before that where we talked about already when we go into the transition of that scene from yep and then nope, and we see him in that get up and he just has this nope look on his face, pretty much is the best way to describe it, which is hilarious. And yeah, I already mentioned about that because the visuals and the storyboarding on that entire song sequence was great and hilarious. Just all the outlandish visuals they have there, and yeah, if that scene, DM. But I'm talking about the other one right before where he's facing the camera. Yeah, there's also the one where he's facing the camera and he makes those lips, and I feel like I need to get Windex for my computer screen. But just before that one is the phase I was talking about. But yeah, that whole song sequence with, and the of course the backup dancers that he has randomly out of nowhere for that, doing all sorts of very sort of really weird dances and sort of trying to act super cool. Featherbangs is just so cool. He has backup dancers that just are there on a whim. It reminded me that whole sequence reminded me a lot of the Pinkie Pie rap sequence from testing 1 2 3 as well. Just in terms of the visual jokes and hilarity of the visuals and what they were kind of poking fun at. Anything else for humor? Or animation and the visuals of this episode? Let's see, because then we'll get to the song here. See, this song was so... I love this song. This had the music and the lyrics by Daniel Ingram, so you can thank Ingram for all the crazy, cheesy lyrics it has. I guess really liked it, because it's kind of... This song has... It's like, a battle song between two people and two genres, but it's battle between two genres and two extremes of genres, and they're genres that we don't really hear in the main series that often. You have Big Mac singing this very slow, deliberate, very like twangy country song for it, and we've heard country in this series before, but usually the country has a little more pop edge for it. It's a little more upbeat, like Raise This Barn or Apples to the Core. They're very upbeat kind of country songs. This is a lot more kind of traditional, slow, twangy, Johnny Cash kind of country that he's that Big Mac is singing here. And then we kind of juxtapose that, and with Featherbang's part, which is extremely hard pop. Like, it's not just like kind of a pop. Pop is a very general term. And it's not like pop rock or anything. It's very, very much, very hard, like top 40 modern day pop. And that's not something we hear in the series. And whenever there's something that's even sort of like a pop song in the main series, they always back it up with instrumentation, a certain instrumentation that kind of ties it back to the show. So like a good example of another kind of poppy song in the main show would be Make a Wish. But that song was backed with a lot of ukulele and I think that one was just ukulele. It might have had some mandolin in it too. In that one to again tie it back to the normal instrumentation of this show. There's not really a lot of times where it's done, and really the only times it's done in the show doesn't really do pop songs, but it's done in the show sort of like the spectacle would be another good example, where it's kind of the point where it's the character that's driving the music and not just having this outlandish pop song just to have outlandish pop song. So we're kind of countering that very twangy country with this very hard pop song, and I just love the back and forth between them, and just love how much fun Ingram and the singers had with the songs. They're really very much parodying the genres and taking them to their extremes. And they do such a great job of having fun with it while still making it be a very enjoyable song to listen to. So I can play the instrumental for the song for Battle for Sugar Bell here. One thing that I will note is the pop sections of the song are very well produced. I mentioned that this Friendship is Magic doesn't really do pop songs. Equestria Girls, of course, is a completely another bag, and has a lot of pop songs in it. And what they usually do in those songs, they take over here. And these Featherbang's parts in this episode of this song are very, very extremely well produced. They're very overproduced. And so normally you'd be able to just get the stereo channels and you'd just get the instrumentals of the episode. But here they do a lot of crazy things with the vocals. Usually the vocals are in the center channel, and for his parts you also have backing vocals the entire time in the two front channels. But his vocals very much bleed into all of the channels, including the rear channels as well, and they do a lot of things that make them very hard or impossible to remove, being that there's a lot of reverb on them, and also a lot of the vocals are mistimed, meaning that you can kind of hear it when we get to the very bouncy one, which is the final Featherbang's verse of the song, where you'll hear the instrumental, but you'll hear the vocals still, but they'll be very much delayed, because they have a little bit of a delay to kind of, when you listen to the whole song, it gives it a certain feel. So they did a really heavy job of producing this that makes it a little hard to to get a direct instrumental of it, but it's still very fun to kind of listen to. So it starts out here again with the very twangy country song, and you get some really nice instrumentation in terms of like fiddles and strings in this. Oops. Let's take that off. Oh yeah, I need to switch Discord over. 1 second. Okay, and make it so I can hear it. Okay, so here we go with Battle for Sugar Belle. So we got that sort of a lot of sort of steel guitar in the right channel, and plenty of acoustic guitar here as well. And I do like how at the beginning here they do allow both of these songs, the first verse of both of these character songs, to get a lot of time in it. So before we get to the back and forth, the quick back and forth in the later sections of the songs, we actually do get to hear a lot more cohesive of a song in both of their styles. And now we'll get to Feather Bang's part here. And this is the one, the part of his song which pretty much is a direct parody of Justin Bieber's Baby. You'll hear a lot of similarities between these two songs. And this is also the one where the vocals have the least amount of production. So you'll still hear the vocals, but you won't hear them quite as loud as you'll hear them in his two later sections. I really actually do enjoy this particular section as a song itself. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure kind of pop song. You can hear those vocals panning into the back here. This is a really fun episode to watch in surround sound. And that little electronic noise there. Okay, and you hear that electrical the electronic part there that comes in the chorus here. That's what really makes this sound like a parody of Baby. It's pretty much almost pulled exactly from Bieber songs. And then we'll get back to Big Mac. So Big Mac sort of has three verses of the same song, but when we get back to Feather Bangs, you'll hear that he actually pretty much has three completely different songs. So this song is, Danny Lundgren pretty much had to write like 4 different songs, or 5 if you include sort of that final part where they're both singing at the same time. Now we get to the one that's a little bit more of kind of like a sing talk, more rap song. And you can hear a lot more vocal production. Those vocals are a lot more prominent in all the channels there. Now we'll get back to Big Mac. A little more banjo in this part here. And this last part is very beat heavy, bass heavy, and it has this really really bouncy beat. I feel like I've heard this as like a direct parody of another song, but I can't remember what song I'm thinking of. But it has a very similar beat to another song I've heard before. And this is the song that has a ton of autotune, so this is one we'll have to go back to the vocals for. And now we get to the, I really like this part, and I'll point out something here in a second. I do like how, in the end, we have these two very different genres, and they sort of bring them together at the end here, and in some ways, and have them both have like almost like a back-and-forth duet here at the end, instead of each singing their own song. And I like how you'll hear in Big Mac's, in the first line here that Big Mac sings, you get that instrumentation from his music. But when we switch over to Featherbang's line after Big Mac's, you'll hear that electronic sound I was talking about earlier from the first song work its way in instead of the guitars, or I think of the banjo or something like that. And it's really cool. I love it. It becomes really cohesive and flows really well. But it has a nice differentiation between both of their characters. Yeah, so there's the banjo, and here comes the electronic. So if you listen to that there, it's actually they're playing the same notes there. The banjo is playing it, and then the electronic noise then keyboard will then play those same notes. So it's the same exact thing. I'll play it again. And then everything comes together at the end. And you have the crash, but you also have the guitar there at the very end going really crazy, and then on Featherbang's side of the music you have the a straight piano going really crazy there at the end. So I don't usually do this. I don't usually play the vocals only track, but I think this one is worth playing when we get to the final part here. So this is just the vocals from it.
We'll take a walk down by the river.
Get to hear Big Mac, Peter New's great Big Mac voice
watch
here.
Watch the sunset from the field. We'll plant the seeds of love together and water them right for a really good yield.
Fucking line.
Sugar bell, sweet as pie, you're the apple of my eye, a cherry blossom in a field of rye. And when the heifer's milked and fed, and the pigs are in the sty, won't you be there by my side?
Now we'll get to Vincent Tong's part here, and this is before we get to the really heavy autotune. So this is going to just be normal singing for his first two voices here, and you'll notice that this is just his lead vocals, so it'll be missing a lot of those backing vocals and mistimed and reverbed vocals that we have in the full version.
Oh, when you appeared before me, my heart stopped beating, stars crossed the sky to come see what I was seeing. You were the one that made me believe I could fly. Whoa, 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 birds could not sing a song that says beautiful. I'd do anything that's irrefutable, 'cause you are the sun painting my heart in the sky. Sugar, sugar bell, oh, when will you tell me that you feel the same?
He does a really good job of mimicking Justin Bieber in these vocals.
Whoa, the sunlight shining through a dress.
Get back to Peter New and Big Mac here.
Sugar bell, when I look in your eyes, I see the color blue, and it reminds me of the sky
Great
above,
timing here in these vocals.
which is also blue.
Hey, hey.
Here's the second part.
Yeah. Be my sugar plum, I will be your watermelon. Every time you smile, I can feel my heart is swelling. Blood is rushing from my head to my hooves, yeah. I start moving when I'm feeling that
Okay,
groove,
Big Mac's
yeah.
final verse.
I've been writing this song for you, searching for the perfect rhyme, for the words I wanna say. Be mine.
And so then we get to the part where the whole reason I wanted to show this is you'll notice that the vocals up to now have been fairly normal for it in the center channel. We get to this final part, and when you listen to the final song, since you're hearing a lot of the stuff that is panned into the left and right channels, the vocals sound normal, although noticeably auto-tuned. But this right here, the vocal only track, is only coming from the center channel. So prepare yourself for just absolute maximum auto-tune. They put this at this auto-tune at maximum in the center channel for this final verse here.
And
Feel my heart beating like the rain upon a melody. Don't you see that I do? Remember you, remember, and so.
It's so great. Then we get to the final back and forth.
Roses are red and violets are blue.
Sugar, sugar, my love is burning hot like a cheese fondue.
Sugar bell,
Sugar bell,
sugar bell,
sugar bell,
sugar bell.
sugar bell, sugar bell.
Love that back and forth there, building up to them being being at the same time there at the end. But yeah, I knew there was auto-tune there, and I thought it was just kind of in the vocals. But when I got to just isolating that center channel there on Sunday, it's just like, oh my god, that is literally nothing. That center channel is nothing but auto-tune, nothing but robotic voice, and it was so great. I just love that over-the-top auto-tune that they put on that. So yeah, that's the Battle of Sugar Bell. I know a lot of people might not like that song because of the style of music in it, but I really enjoyed it. It's just it's enjoyable to listen to. The tunes are catchy. Even the Bieber parody ones are pretty catchy. And it's one thing I always liked is like just no matter what genre of music that Ingram and his team take on in the show, they always kind of give it their all and really nail down what that genre is and what makes it sound the way it is. So when you get to something like as a parody of very hard pop songs and parody of Justin Bieber, it sounds like a Justin Bieber song, and I guess I really appreciate the effort that's put into that. Even if it's not a genre of song like the Big Mac part song, it's not kind of a genre I would usually listen to. I don't really like the slow twangy country, but they really nail that genre really well. And I've been listening to this song a lot. Maybe it's because it's only the second song this season, but I've been listening to this song a lot the past couple days just because it's just so enjoyable to listen to, just in terms of the musical value and also just in terms of just the comedy of it. So props to Ingram and the rest of his team that did the song, because that was a lot of fun. So any other final comments on the song? So then we'll just quickly go through some of the I think I forgot to advance the slide. We were talking about the song. So now we'll go to the score and the backing the backing music here. I won't go through a lot of it here since we spent so much time on the song. There was more than last week, so we're back up to 13 tracks this week for it. But there's not a lot that I'll really focus on here. We get a lot of reoccurring themes that we've heard before, such as the spy theme, of course, for when they're going through the. Let's see if I can find it here. It's like, I think it's at the end. Here it is. So we hear this a couple times in the episode. We've heard this all in the series many times before. At the beginning, there's a really nice little part. This is during the cold open. Oh, my phone thought I said "Hey Siri." That's interesting. There's a part. This is right the cold open there, and the part I really like about this is when Scootaloo is sort of saying, "No, we're not going to focus on this right now. Something's up with your brother," and they start discussing like what's up with them. It has this really nice little backing track, new backing track that I liked. Starts with these arpeggios here. This is the part here. It's really mysterious sounding. Sort of like a mix with harp and xylophone, like with a soft mallet. The other main thing I wanted to point out from the score in this episode is Sugar Belle actually gets her own leitmotif in this that's used a couple times for her, and I really like it. It's a kind of a bouncy one with a lot of very heavy bass on it. Here, I'll just play it here. This is Sugar Belle's motif from the episode. Has like these arpeggios there on piano. And of course, you have that main the main melody there on strings, and that same theme there will be reprised at the end after Big Mac and her make up, and she's again talking about and very excited when she's excited to see the new thing that the new display case that Big Mac has built for her. I really like this motif. And then, let's see, a couple more things I'll show. You get the more emotional track here when Big Mac is, after the song and Sugar Belle sends all of them out. This is from where Big Mac is giving his kind of talk to the CMC about her not being really a fairy tale princess and just a normal everyday pony. You'll notice this song is backed with a banjo there for Big Mac. And then we'll just quickly get to the episode's end here, where we have the lesson theme. This lesson theme we last heard in Sweetie Belle at the end of Sweetie Belle and Rarities episode a few episodes ago.
Sugar Belle,
And you get him doing his That fucking low note at the end there. This little Say Anything parody there. And I'll stop it there. It goes on for a little bit, but those were the notable things of score from the episodes. So I really like the highlight for me of that is definitely Sugar Bell's theme. I really enjoyed that leitmotif that she got in the episode. So hopefully, if we see her again, we'll hear that again in future episodes. So I'm pushing on here since we're going a little long. What did everyone think about the episode's theme and moral?
Alright, well, let's see what we got here. Well, we got 3 of them, mainly. We've got, when trying to lose someone, don't treat them as a prize to be won in a competition. Take time to learn about them, treat them as a person, and then do things that are actually meaningful to them on a personal level. Also, love isn't about big, showy gestures for the sake of big and showy gestures. Actions can be genuinely meaningful and heartfelt even if they aren't big and loud. Also, just because someone's kind to your romantic overtures doesn't mean that she's into you. Maybe she's just being polite. If you think your crush might be mutual, talk to them like an adult.
Was that it?
That was it, yeah.
Okay.
Was you honestly expecting me to end with "Don't be a dick" again?
I truthfully was. I was.
I gotta subvert expectations every once in a while.
Pretty much that. Both the lesson that they explicitly stated at the end, and also the lesson that Big Mac states for the CMC earlier there. So quite a bit of stuff. And it's good stuff. It's good stuff that's kind of the basic romance crush kind of lessons there. So favorite parts and any concerns that stuck out for you that you want to mention in the episode from anyone?
Pretty much just the whole episode was just one big giant favorite part for me. I don't really have anything in particular that I could really point out that is, yes, this is my favorite part of the episode in general, or in particular, just everything just kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It was extremely just enjoyable, fun episode to watch. I definitely liked seeing Sugar Bell again. That was definitely a favorite moment for me. I was happy to see that, this song for me is definitely one of my favorite parts. It was just so well. It was so over the top, but very well done, and it was just as hilarious on its own as the rest of the episode. So. So, get down to overall feelings. Any final comments, final conclusions from anyone? Yeah, I know it's hard to say anything.
See, if you think it was hard for me to say anything, man, if just wait until the episode, not next week, but the week after that, man. That one's a real royal problem. Not to talk about anything about that one.
I mean, overall, I guess it's just a good episode. It was a good, solid episode from a new writer. It was a very obviously comedy-heavy episode, very entertaining and hilarious episode. The new writer definitely showed that she, definitely has Becky has the ability to write some good comedy episodes based around characters. I was happy that they really tackled a romantic plot head on. I mean, they've kind of done a couple before, both with the Love Potion one in Hearts and Hooves Day and the Unwanted Advances one and in Simple Ways, but I think this one was a lot more of a standard kind of very general, like one about having a crush or having feelings for someone, and I think they tackled it really well, and they tackled it with a lot of comedy, so it was it was very, very entertaining and wasn't grating or anything like that. A great episode, just a great song, and looking forward to seeing more from Becky. It was definitely very entertaining. So yeah, with that, thank you everyone so much for participating in Triple E today for this. It was a lot of fun. Went longer than I was expecting. I wasn't exactly sure how much there was really to discuss from this episode for it, because it's a lot. It's one of the episodes that has a lot of humor in it, but not a ton of stories. So we managed to talk about it for quite a while. So thank you all for joining us. We will of course be back this weekend for the new MLP episode here airing in the United States, Honest Apple. Already best episode of the season since it is an Applejack episode. So we'll be watching that together here this weekend at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And of course, we'll be back for another Triple E next week, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to discuss Honest Apple and just give our honest opinions on that episode. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next week. I'm gonna run and get some dinner, so bye bye.
See ya.